My brother had an affair with my fiancée for months and got her pregnant before my wedding while my parents supported Amen. This is going to be long and it's as complicated as it sounds. I'll try to be as concise as possible. But there's a lot to unpack here. I don't care if anyone believes it or not. It's so crazy I need to get it off my chest, plus I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But I will avoid any details that might identify me to those who don't know the situation. Yet I'm a 32-year-old male, and up until a few months ago, I was engaged to my girlfriend of 5 years. We'll call her Sarah, my younger brother. Let's call him Mike. He's 29, and has always been the golden child in our family. To truly understand the depth of this betrayal and why it has affected me so much, I need to give you some background on my family and how we got to this point growing up. Mike could do nothing wrong in the eyes of our parents, while I was constantly criticized and punished for things more little ones. This wasn't just your typical sibling rivalry or slight favoritism, it was blatant and extreme. Mike would break something and I would be the one to blame, start a fight, and I would be the one to get punished if we both got A's. He would get a new video game console, while I would get a pat on the back and told to keep it up. Our parents, let's call them Tommy, LM, always had an excuse for their behavior. Mike is younger. He needs more attention. You are the oldest, you should know better. Mike is more sensitive. We have to be careful with him. It was a constant barrage of double standards and psychological manipulation that made me feel worthless and unloved in my own home. As I got older, the favoritism only grew more when I got into a good university. On a partial scholarship, my kids barely recognized him. But when Mike decided to go to community college, they threw him a huge party and bought him a car to ride in, regardless that he had been riding bikes. 6 miles round trip to my part-time job for years. I moved out as soon as I could to escape the toxic environment at home. I paid for college working 2 jobs and taking out loans. Meanwhile, Mick dropped out after 1 semester claiming college wasn't for him. Our parents supported his decision, fully praising him for knowing himself and not conforming to societal expectations. They even funded his string of failed business ventures over the next few years. Despite the distance I tried to put between my family, I always found a way to get me back. Christmas dinners were a nightmare of subtle jabs and not-so-subtle comparisons. Or are you still in that wine-making level job? Well, Mike is thinking P, and I'm starting another business. He's so entrepreneurial. Never mind, I was actually building a stable career while Mike was burning through our parents' retirement fund. I tried to maintain a relationship with Mike despite it all. He was still my brother after all, but it was always one-sided. I would reach out to try to connect, and he would ignore me. Or I found some way to turn the conversation into a competition that I could win. If I got a promotion, I would suddenly have a big opportunity. If I started dating someone miraculously, I would also be in a serious relationship. It was during one of my attempts to reconnect with Mick. I knew Sarah Ela was a friend of one of his short-term girlfriends, and we hit it off right away. Sarah was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Smart, funny kind, and absolutely beautiful. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly happy and valued. My parents predictably weren't too thrilled. They made snide comments about how Sarah was out of my league and questioned what he already saw on my mic. On the other hand, he suddenly became very interested in my life. He asked about Sarah, constantly wanting to know everything about her at the time. I was happy he seemed to care about something in my life. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. Sarah and I moved in together after a year of dating and things were going well. We both had good jobs. We traveled, talked about the future. I started to feel like maybe I could have the life I always wanted. Successful, career-loving partner, maybe even kids. Someday I proposed to Sarah on our 4th anniversary. It wasn't anything flashy, just a quiet dinner at home and a heartfelt speech. She already said yes. I felt on top of the world. We decided to have a long engagement. Take our time planning the wedding. We weren't in a hurry. We had our whole lives ahead of us. Or so I thought when we announced our engagement to my family. The reactions were mixed to say the least. My mom put on a fake smile and said how cute in a tone that suggested anything, but my dad grinned and said, "Good luck with that," before turning back to the TV. Mike. Although Mike's reaction was the strangest, he congratulated us. But there was something off about his smile, something almost predator. Like, I dismissed it at the time, chalking it up to my own insecurities. The next year was wedding planning. Sarah and I worked long hours at our jobs, trying to save up for the wedding and a down payment on a house. We didn't see each other as much as we used to, but I figured it was just a phase. Every couple goes through now. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Sarah became more distant, always on her phone, smiling at the texts from someone she would quickly say was just a friend from work. She started hanging out with her friends, more coming home late smelling of alcohol and cologne. But I trusted her completely. I never considered she could be cheating on me, let alone with my own brother a few months ago. Sarah started acting even stranger. She was moody, irritable, and constantly having excuses. I thought, what if she was pregnant? And I was excited at the idea that we hadn't been trying. But we talked about wanting to have kids. Eventually, I started planning how I would support her, imagining nursery colors and baby names. Then one night she sat me down with tears in her eyes and dropped the bomb she was pregnant. But it wasn't mine. I was stunned, and we hadn't been intimate in a while because of our busy schedules. But I never imagined she would cheat on me when I asked her who the father was. She completely broke down and whispered, "It's my who." The moment my whole world shattered. Everything. I thought I knew everything. Everything I had built my life around fell apart. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was this overwhelming feeling of betrayal and loss. Sarah tried to explain her words, rushing out between dulls. Apparently, our engagement party had started. Mike had cornered her. I had told her she was making a mistake marrying me, played on her insecurities, telling her she could do her best. He could give her everything I couldn't. It wasn't just a one-time thing. They had been having an affair for months. I kicked Sarah out that night. I couldn't stand to look at her. I couldn't stand to be in the same room as the woman who had betrayed me so completely. She begged me to forgive her. She said it was a mistake. She loved me. But all I could think about was how many times she had lied to my face. How many times she had been with my brother while wearing the ring I had given her. After Sarah left, I called Mike. I don't even remember what I said. It was all a blur of rage and hurt. At first, he tried to act calm, saying it was just a drunken mistake, and it meant nothing. But when I pressed him, he got defensive and said, "Well, maybe if I had been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me." And I got in my car and drove to his apartment, ready to do something to make him regret saying what he said. I don't know what he was planning to do, but when I got there, our parents were already there. Apparently, Mike had called them first, telling a story about how Sarah had seduced him and how sorry he was. You know, they believed him always. They do. My mother immediately started lecturing me about forgiveness and family, while my father stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me. Of course not, and his precious microphone. I tried to explain what really happened, but they wouldn't listen. They kept insisting that I needed to forgive Mike and support him. Sarah threw the pregnancy, because family comes first. I lost him. Years of resentment and pent-up anger came pouring out. I told them exactly what I thought of their twisted sense of loyalty, how they had always favored Micah, my coast, how they had never stood by my side and supported me. I told Mike that he was dead, to me, that he was no longer my brother. I told my parents who could have the child they always wanted because they didn't have me anymore. I stormed out, ignoring their screams and pleas. I drove for hours and no destination in mind. I just needed to be away from everything and everyone. When I finally got home, I had dozens of missed calls and texts, some from Sarah begging for another chance, some from Mac alternating between apologies and accusations, but mostly from my parents demanding I grow up and make amends. I ignored them all, barely eating, barely sleeping. I called work, using all my saved-up vacation days. I couldn't face anyone. I couldn't stand the thought of stopping to explain what had happened. I sat in my apartment, replaying every moment of my relationship with Sarah, every interaction with Mike, tying Verdun that I had gone wrong. It's been 3 months now. I moved to a new apartment, changed my number, and started therapy for lie with all this mess. But my family won't give up despite my efforts to cut contact. They keep finding ways to intrude in my life. They've started showing up at my workplace, trying to ambush and force a reconciliation. My mother corners me in the parking lot, crying about how I'm tearing the family apart. My father goes off roof boa about how I need to be a man and forgive Mike. Mike himself has tried to get close to me a few times, but I've managed to avoid him so far. They've even sent flying monkeys in the form of extended family members to make me feel guilty and make me forgive Mike. Aunts, uncles, cousins I haven't talked to in years are suddenly blowing up. My phone telling me how important family is and how I need to let bygones be bygones. It's like they're living in an alternate reality where what Mike and Sarah did is just a small mistake, not a life-changing one. The latest development. Yesterday I got a text from Sarah. She is keeping the baby and wants to co-parent with Mike. And guess what? My parents are over the moon about becoming grandparents, completely ignoring the circumstances of how it happened, and the snide comments my mom and dad used to make when Sarah was with me. The letter was full of apologies and explanations, talking about how she and Mike had found true love through this tough situation. She even had the audacity to say she hoped we could all be friends someday for the sake of the child. I am at my wit's end. Part of me wants to cut ties completely and start over somewhere else. Maybe move to another state. Change my name. Build a new life where no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so angry that I want to stay and fight to make them see how messed up this whole situation is. I don't know anymore what to do. The betrayal has affected every aspect of my life. I can't stand to be alone with my thoughts. I have not even considered dating again. The thought of trusting someone like that terrifies me too. I have lost friends over this, people who think I should take the high road and reconcile with my family, like I'm the one in the wrong for not playing happy families with the people who hurt me the most. The thought of Sarah and Mike raising a child together, a child that should have been mine, is like a knife constant in my stomach. Logically, the child is innocent in all of this. It's not the baby's fault. His parents are liars, cheaters, but I can't have positive feelings about his existence. My parents have started talking about how I need to be involved in the child's life as I'm going to be an uncle. The thought makes me physically sick. How am I supposed to look at this child and not see the ultimate symbol of my brother's betrayal? Like that Reddit. I guess what I'm asking is, and I'm the one for refusing to forgive my brother and ex-fiancé, am wrong for wanting to cut ties with my family over this. Any advice on how to move forward would be appreciated. Because right now, I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of betrayal and manipulation. You know, this was long, and if you have read this far, thank you just writing. All this has been cathartic. In some ways. I don't know what I hope to get by posting this validation. Maybe advice, or maybe just a chance to scream into the void. Someone will hear me edit this. Blew up overnight. Thanks everyone for the support and advice. I'm overwhelmed by the response, and it will take me some time to read all the comments, but I wanted to address some common questions. 1. Yes, I have spoken to a lawyer about a restraining order against my family. It is in process too. No, I don't plan on having any contact with the baby. It's not the child's fault, but I can't get involved without losing my sanity. 3. For those asking about my job. I already spoke to HR about the situation. They are aware and supportive. They have increased security at the front desk and gave me the option to work from home more often. I am grateful for your understanding. 4. Many of you have asked if I have considered moving to another city or state. It is definitely something I am thinking about. My company has offices in several other cities, so a transfer might be possible. I am weighing the pros and cons. 5. To those suggesting DNA testing. Sarah admitted to the affair, and the timeline matches. I have no reason to believe the child is not Mike's, even if by some miracle it turned out to be mine. I am not sure. I could look at that child without thinking about this. I have been overwhelmed by the number of people sharing similar stories. It is disheartbreaking to know how common this type of betrayal is. But it's also strangely comforting to know that I'm not alone. Thank you all for your vulnerability and sharing. 7. To the person who asked if I've considered taking legal action against Mike for alienation of affection. I looked into it, but unfortunately it's not recognized in my state. Even if it were, I'm not sure I have the energy for a legal battle right now. 8. Several people I've pointed out that Mike's behavior sounds narcissistic. I started reading up on narcissistic personality disorder, and a lot of that rings true. It's helping me understand, though not excuse, some of his actions. 9. To those asking about Sarah's family. So as shocked and disgusted as you'd expect, they've cut contact with her and reached out to offer their support. It's a small con, but I appreciate it. 10. To the person who asked if I thought about having children of my own someday. Honestly, this whole experience has made me question whether I want to have a family. But I'm trying not to make any big decisions as I continue to process everything. I'll update if anything significant happens, but for now, I'm focusing on healing and moving on. Thanks again. Reddit, you've helped me more than you know. Your support and advice has given me a lot to think about, and has honestly been a lifesaver during this difficult time. I may not be able to respond to all the comments, but know that I'm reading them all, and they're helping me feel less alone in this update. 1. Hi Reddit. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and it's been a complete roller coaster. First off, thank you everyone for the overwhelming support and advice. I never expected my post to blow up like this. And reading all of your comments has been heartbreaking and oddly comforting. It's a mess. How common this type of betrayal is. The last 2 weeks have been intense to say the least. Remember how I mentioned I was working on getting a restraining order? Well, that became quite an ordeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork, and we had a scheduled hearing. I thought it would be simple given the evidence and constant harassment. I was wrong. My parents showed up to the hearing with their own lawyer, a fancy guy in an expensive suit who probably charges more per hour than I make in a week. They tried to paint me as the unstable one, claiming I was tearing the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, like Mike accidentally tripped and fell on my fiancée. The judge thankfully didn't buy it. She granted the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but not without my mother bursting into tears in the courtroom, and my father looking at me like I had just committed murder. The look on Mick's face, though I swear if looks could kill, I would be under 60. As we walked out of the courthouse, Mike tried to get close to me. My lawyer stood between us, reminding him of the newly instated restraining order. M just scoffed and said this wasn't over. I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever. I would be lying if I said his words were true. I wasn't shaken one bit. But for now, at least I have some legal protection, and the situation at the workplace has been another nightmare. Remember how I mentioned that my family had been showing up at my workplace? Well, that came to a head last week. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant came in saying that my mother was in the lobby and causing a scene. Apparently, she brought a photo album and was trying to show my coworkers baby pictures of Mike and I because of how close her kids were. So I excused myself and went to the lobby, where I found my mother surrounded by a group of coworkers who looked uncomfortable. She was telling a story about how Mike and I used to take showers together when we were little. When she saw me, she tried to run up to me talking about a baby shower, but I cut her off. I told her she had to leave immediately, or I would call the police and have her out there in violation of the restraining order. Her expression was like if I would have slapped her, but after everything they put me through, I couldn't bring myself to care. Security escorted her out, and I had to spend the next hour doing damage control with my boss and coworkers. Luckily, most of them were understanding, but I could tell a few were wondering what kind of drama I was bringing into the workplace. However, the confrontation with Mike, that's where things really went off the rails. Last Saturday, I was at the gym, trying to release some of my anger on the punching bag. I was so focused on my workout that I started crying. I didn't realize, and someone was coming up behind me until I heard his voice. I turned around and there was Mike smiling at me like I hadn't violated the restraining order. He started talking loud enough for the people nearby to hear. I told him to get out before Lamar went to the police. But he just kept saying that I would tell them how I had been threatening him and Sarah. And that's when I lost control. I punched him and hit him in the jaw. He staggered back before lunging at me. We ended up on the ground trading blame like we were kids again, except this time there were no parents to separate us. No one told me to be the bigger person and let Mick win. I landed a few good punches before the gym staff broke up. The rhythmic was bleeding paw, and I could feel the swelling closing up. We were both screaming, trying to break free and attack each other again. The gym manager threatened to call the police, and that finally got me out of there. As I grabbed my stuff and left, as I drove home, still shaking from adrenaline, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Sarah yelling at me about how I had broken Mike's nose, that he might need surgery. I laughed. I couldn't help the absurdity of her being mad at me. After everything they had done was too much. I told her I was sorry, and I hurt her little boyfriend that she had been sleeping with behind my back for months. She started sobbing, and then went on about how stressed I was, and how the baby could sense her distress, and how could I be so selfish. I blocked her number. The fallout from the fight was intense. The news had spread like wildfire through our social circle. My phone was blowing up with texts from friends and family, some calling me names for hitting my poor defenseless brother. The Sarah's parents reached out again, reiterating their support for me and expressing their disappointment in their daughter. It was a small consolation, but at this point, I'll take what I can get. The restraining order no longer seems enough. Mike has shown he is willing to violate it, and I am worried about what he might do next. The legal consequences have been a nightmare. The day after the gym incident, I got a call from my lawyer. Apparently Mike had filed assault charges against me. I explained what had happened, how Mike had violated the restraining order, how he had provoked me. My lawyer sighed and said they would fight, but it could be an uphill battle given that I threw the first punch. We are in the process of filing our own charges against Mike for violating the restraining order. My lawyer seems confident this will help our case, but nothing is certain. I have had to give statements to the police, show them the bruises on my face and nukes. It is humiliating to have to justify defending my own brother. The gym has banned us from Mike, and me for life. I can't say I blame them, but it sucks that the gym was one of the few places I felt I could get my anger out in a healthy way. My cousin Amy, who I've always been close with, called me the other day. She's been getting a lot of flack from family for supporting me, but she's standing her ground. She told me some of what's been going on behind the scenes. Apparently my parents have been telling everyone. I'm having some kind of mental breakdown. They say Sarah and Mike's relationship only started after Sarah and I broke up, and I'm just jealous and can't let go. Amy says a lot of the family doesn't believe it, but some do. It's infuriating to know they're out there spreading lies about me, while I try to keep my head down and heal things at work. Have been porinos after the incident with my mom in the lobby, and the fight with Mike. That is circulating on local social media. I can say my co-workers are walking on eggshells around me. My boss called me into his office earlier this week. He started off by saying that he values me as an employee and understands that I'm going through a tough time. But then he hit me with the kick that he thinks it's a bad decision. Maybe it's better if I take a leave until things calm down. He said, "We can call it a personal sabbatical if you want to get paid." Of course I wanted to argue to tell him that work is the only thing keeping him sane at the moment, but I could see the decision had already been made. So I accepted it, thanked him for his understanding, and started packing up my office as I left. I heard two of my coworkers whispering about how my brother had gotten my fiancée pregnant. I closed my office door harder than necessary as I left. I gave a little satisfaction in watching him jump. I'd be lying if I said all of this wasn't affecting me. I started taking long trips at night, just to get out of my apartment. Sometimes I find myself parked outside my old place, the one I shared with Sarah, wondering what the heck my life turned into a mess. In all this chaos, I found support from an unexpected source. Sarah's younger sister Emma reached out to me via social media, apologizing for her sister's actions and offering her support. At first I was skeptical, and if this was some kind of trick. But after talking to her, I realized she's just as upset by Sarah's behavior as I am. I've been giving information about what's going on in Sarah and Mick's world. Apparently they've moved in together, playing house as if they haven't blown up multiple lives to be together. Emma says she's been trying to paint herself as the victim in all of this, crying to anyone who will listen about how she never wanted to hurt anyone, and how she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. Makes me sick to my stomach, but I'm grateful to Emma for keeping me informed. Knowledge is power after all. Even if it's a knowledge, I would rather not have the social media situation. It's been another nightmare. Always been a pretty private person when it comes to social media. Ultrasound pictures, belly pictures. The works always with a caption about how blessed she and Miklo are, excited they are to start their family. Every new piece of information feels like a fresh wound, reopening the pain, just when I think I'm starting to heal. So that's where things stand now. 2 weeks ago, I thought my life couldn't get any more complicated, but in some ways it has been. I'm still angry, I'm still hurt, but I'm also tired of standing up for myself. So ready. I guess, juiced, you're less of an update and more of an, I don't know. I cry into the void. I'm not even sure what I'm asking for at this point. Advice. Sympathy, a machine of the time to be able to go back and never introduce him to Sarah, my brother. No matter what happens next, I will try to keep you all informed. Your support has meant more to me than you can imagine. It's good to remember there are still good people out there, even when it seems like my whole world is full of betrayal and lies. Final update to Reddit. It's been a week since Deem and last update, and I'm back with what I hope will be my last post about this whole mess. First off, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice throughout this ordeal. Your words have been a lifesaver during the darkest times of my life. So where to start? A lot has happened in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to process it all. I guess I'll start with the biggest news: I'm moving. Yes, that's right. I took a chance and accepted a transfer to our Seattle office. It wasn't an easy decision, but after everything that's happened, I knew I needed a fresh start. The decision came after a particularly rough day. Last week, I had just returned from another meeting with my attorney about Mike's assault charges when I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from Sarah. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was an ultrasound picture and a handwritten note that talked about how excited she and Mike were about their baby. She went on to say that she hoped I could find it in my heart to happily for them, and how the baby would love to have his uncle in his life. I saw red before I knew what I was doing. I grabbed my phone, unlocked Sarah, and dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, and I just went with it. I told her exactly what I thought of her, Mike, and his happy little family. I told her she was delusional if she thought I would ever want anything to do with that child as far as I respectability, actions, and offering her support. At first I was skeptical, and if this was some kind of trick. But after talking to her, I realized she's just as upset by Sarah's behavior as I am. I've been giving information about what's going on in Sarah and Mick's world. Apparently they've moved in together, playing house as if they haven't blown up multiple lives to be together. Emma says she's been trying to paint herself as the victim in all of this, crying to anyone who will listen about how she never wanted to hurt anyone, and how she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. Makes me sick to my stomach, but I'm grateful to Emma for keeping me informed. Knowledge is power after all. Even if it's a knowledge, I would rather not have the social media situation. It's been another nightmare. Always been a pretty private person when it comes to social media. Ultrasound pictures, belly pictures, the works, always with a caption about how blessed she and Miklo are, excited they are to start their family. Every new piece of information feels like a fresh wound, reopening the pain, just when I think I'm starting to heal. So that's where things stand now. 2 weeks ago, I thought my life couldn't get any more complicated, but in some ways it has been. I'm still angry, I'm still hurt, but I'm also tired of standing up for myself, so ready. I guess, juiced, you're less of an update and more of an, I don't know. I cry into the void. I'm not even sure what I'm asking for at this point. Advice. Sympathy, a machine of the time to be able to go back and never introduce him to Sarah, my brother. No matter what happens next, I will try to keep you all informed. Your support has meant more to me than you can imagine. It's good to remember there are still good people out there, even when it seems like my whole world is full of betrayal and lies. Final update to Reddit. It's been a week since Deem and last update, and I'm back with what I hope will be my last post about this whole mess. First off, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice throughout this ordeal. Your words have been a lifesaver during the darkest times of my life. So where to start? A lot has happened in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to process it all. I guess I'll start with the biggest news: I'm moving. Yes, that's right. I took a chance and accepted a transfer to our Seattle office. It wasn't an easy decision, but after everything that's happened, I knew I needed a fresh start. The decision came after a particularly rough day. Last week, I had just returned from another meeting with my attorney about Mike's assault charges when I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from Sarah. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was an ultrasound picture and a handwritten note that talked about how excited she and Mike were about their baby. She went on to say that she hoped I could find it in my heart to happily for them, and how the baby would love to have his uncle in his life. I saw red before I knew what I was doing. I grabbed my phone, unlocked Sarah, and dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, and I just went with it. I told her exactly what I thought of her, Mike, and his happy little family. I told her she was delusional if she thought I would ever want anything to do with that child as far as I respectability,